The air smelled like old people and cleaning stuff, a thick, heavy smell that was all around me in this plain, boring room. My chest went up and down, each breath a struggle, a sign that I was still alive despite what Eleanor wanted. She stood there looking perfect in her fancy suit, with a sweet fake smile that always made me feel sick. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, hoping for, fighting to stay alive for. "Eliza dear, you look a bit red," she said, her voice like fake sugar, meant to calm me down, to make me seem unimportant. But I wasn't the quiet old lady she'd put in this bed anymore. The anger that had been burning inside me for months, for years even, was now a huge fire, ready to burn everything. My hands, old and shaking, squeezed into tight fists under the thin blanket. "Red," I whispered, my voice weak but full of all the anger I'd kept inside my whole life. "You left me here, Eleanor. You left me to die like a lost dog in this awful place. And you talk about how I look." My eyes, once confused, now burned with a clear look that seemed to shock her. A tiny crack in her calm, made-up face. Her smile flickered just for a second, but it was enough. Enough to show the tiny flaw in her perfect act. "Now Eliza, don't be so dramatic. We both know this was for your own good. The doctors said you needed care all the time. I only wanted what was best for you, my dear sister." The words were like poison, full of fake kindness, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. "Best for me," I shouted, finding strength I didn't know I had. A rush of energy running through my old veins. "Best for you, Eleanor. Best for your perfect picture of a caring sister. Giving up everything for her poor, sick sister. While I wasted away, you got richer, didn't you? Living off my money, my stuff. Building your success on my forgotten grave." Her eyes got narrow, her perfect mask finally slipping, showing the cold, snake-like stare I'd always been a little scared of as a kid. "You're imagining things, Eliza. The medicine must be making you confused. Maybe we need to give you more. I'll talk to the nurse." Her voice, still calm on the outside, had a sharp, hard edge, a quiet threat that I understood completely. "Don't you dare!" I screamed, a raw, wild sound that broke the quiet hum of the nursing home. The nurse nearby, a kind, plump woman named Martha, stopped in the doorway, her eyes wide with worry, not sure what to do. Eleanor gave Martha a quick, sharp look, silently telling her to leave. "I'm not confused, Eleanor. Not anymore. I remember everything. And I have proof." The word proof hung in the air, a strong weapon, making her perfectly guarded heart tremble with fear. Her calm face finally broke, twisting into a look of pure, uncontrolled anger. "Proof? What proof are you talking about, you crazy old woman?" she sneered, her voice losing its sweet sound, showing the harsh, rough edge underneath. The meanness was clear now, raw and open. This was the real Eleanor, the one who always hated that I even existed, the one who saw me as something to get rid of. The letter Eleanor. The one you forgot to burn. My voice was a winning whisper, a slight smile on my lips. Her face went white, all color draining away, leaving behind a stark, pale look of pure terror. My heart beat loudly in my ears, a drum of victory. What letter?" she stuttered, her voice thin and shaky, a big change from her confident tone before. Her eyes darted around the room, searching, desperate for a way out, a way to shut me up. The fear was so strong, I could almost taste its sweetness. "The one to Beatrice, Eleanor. The one where you told her your deepest wishes. The one where you talked about getting rid of me one way or another, even when we were kids." I watched her, enjoying the clear way her control was falling apart, her perfect world crumbling. Her mouth dropped open, a silent gasp of horror escaping her lips. She stumbled back, bumping into the small table next to the bed, knocking over a glass of water, which shattered with a sickening crash on the floor. The sound was very loud in the sudden quiet, a mark of her downfall. Martha, the nurse, rushed in, her worry now mixed with fear. "Mrs. Weatherstone, are you okay? What happened?" She looked between us, her gaze stopping on Eleanor's horrified, exposed face. The damage was done. The truth, once hidden, was now spilling out into the harsh light of this plain room. Eleanor, her face a mask of wild anger and desperation, lunged forward. Not at me, not directly, but towards the table next to the bed, towards my small pile of personal things. She grabbed at an old, worn photo album, her fingers clumsy with frantic urgency. It was my only link to the outside world, my dear memories, proof of a life she had tried to erase. "Give me that," I roared, a burst of raw, wild strength surging through me. I pushed myself up, my old body shaking, my hands reaching out, grabbing at the album. It was a desperate, messy fight. A sad dance between a woman holding onto the last bits of herself and a woman desperate to destroy them. Martha, caught in the middle, cried out, trying to pull us apart. But the anger in Eleanor's eyes was wild, uncontrolled. She yanked the album from my grip, its old pages tearing, old photos floating to the floor like leaves in autumn. My heart hurt at the sight, each falling picture a piece of my stolen past, a memory crushed underfoot. "You won't tell anyone. You won't ruin me," she shrieked, her voice rough, not sounding like her at all. She raised her hand not to hit me, but to tear the rest of the pages from the album, to wipe out the last parts of my life. But then her eyes landed on one special photo, a picture of a younger me, bright and smiling, holding a bunch of wildflowers. Her eyes got wide, a flash of something like understanding, or maybe regret, crossed her face. It was a quick moment, gone in an instant, replaced by a new surge of crazy destruction. She ripped the page, the sound echoing in the small room. But just as she was about to tear the photo itself, my hand, guided by a force stronger than my old body, shot out. My fingers, surprisingly quick, wrapped around her wrist, my grip surprisingly strong. "You won't destroy this, Eleanor?" I whispered, my voice shaking with the effort but firm. "You won't erase me. Not anymore." Our eyes met, a fierce primal fight of wills happening in the clean, plain nursing home room. The fight was far from over. In fact, it had just truly begun. And Eleanor, for the first time in her life, looked truly, completely scared. The sound of Eleanor's choked gasp still rings in my ears, the feel of her wrists still hot beneath my fingers. The shattered glass lies on the floor like broken promises. I push away from the bed, my body aching, but my spirit burning bright. You see, for Eleanor to have a reaction like that, to lose her cool and break down right in front of the nurse, it meant one thing: the letter was real. And it was exactly what I needed. But to understand why that letter was so powerful, why it made her unravel, we have to go back. Way back. Before the nursing home, before the money, before all the cruelty. We have to go back to a little house that smelled of my mom's baking. A house that was supposed to be filled with love, but for me it was always a stage for Eleanor's perfect performance. Our parents, God bless their trusting hearts, loved us both. But Eleanor was always the star. She was the one with the perfect grades, the graceful dance moves, the dazzling smile that charmed everyone. I was just Eliza, the quiet one, the one who preferred drawing to dancing, the one who always seemed to be just a little bit out of step. It wasn't just in my head. Our parents, without meaning to be cruel, constantly compared us. "Why can't you be more like Eleanor, Eliza?" my mom would say. "Look how responsible she is." My dad would nod. "Eleanor always knows what to say." These words, spoken so casually, were like tiny needles, pricking at my self-worth, making me feel smaller and smaller. Eleanor, soaking up all that praise, became our family's golden child. And I became her shadow. But it wasn't just harmless sibling rivalry. Oh no. Looking back now, with the truth staring me in the face, I can see the ugly patterns that started even then. The little accidents that always seemed to happen to me when Eleanor was nearby. Like the time my favorite drawing, a portrait of our dog, mysteriously got a big ink stain right before a school art show. Or the unlucky fall down the stairs that broke my arm just before my school play. It was never anything huge, never enough to make anyone suspicious. Just enough to mess things up for me. Just enough to make me feel like I was always being held back. My best friend Sarah saw it. She always had a sharp eye. "Eleanor's got a mean streak, Eliza," she'd warn, her voice a low whisper. "Be careful around her." But I, foolishly, loved my sister too much to believe it. I thought Sarah was just being jealous. How could my own sister, the one I told all my secrets to, the one who shared my room, want to hurt me? Our parents, kind but blind, never saw past Eleanor's sweet act. They were the ones in charge, always wanting peace, never seeing the storm brewing under the surface. As we grew up, things just got worse, slowly, quietly. When our parents passed away, Eleanor took over everything. The house, the money, even my future. She made herself look like the perfect, caring daughter, giving up her life to take care of her sick sister. But the truth was, she was cutting me off from everyone. My friends slowly disappeared, my independent spirit chipped away. She'd suggest helpful things, like managing my bills or encouraging me to move into a smaller, easier apartment. Each step she took was like building a wall around me brick by brick. The biggest stab in the back came when my health really started to get worse. A few falls, my memory getting fuzzy. Eleanor, pretending to be the worried sister, was right there, comforting me, whispering about the best care, the most trusted nursing home. She even cried a few fake tears. What an actress! She was the villain in my story, getting better and better at her cruel game. I was weak, confused, and couldn't fight back. I honestly believe she was doing what was best for me. She said she was making arrangements for my safety, for my well-being. What she really arranged was for me to disappear. I remember the day I was taken to that place. The cold, sterile smell, the forced smiles of the staff. Eleanor, beaming, squeezed my hand. "It's for your own good, Eliza. You'll be safe here." I was too weak to argue, too confused to resist. I truly believed she cared. But my confusion slowly turned into unease, then into a creeping fear as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. My calls to friends went unanswered. Letters I sent were returned. Eleanor's visits became less frequent, her excuses weaker and weaker. I was the helpless one, the underdog, not even knowing yet that I was in a battle for my life. I was trapped, slowly fading away, a forgotten ghost in a forgotten place. And then one ordinary day, while a kind nurse was clearing out an old box of letters, I found it. A letter, folded and old, sent to a childhood friend of Eleanor's. It was dated when we were just kids. It talked about wishes, about wanting a sibling who was in the way to just disappear. The ink was faded, but the words screamed at me. And in that very moment, the harmless arguments of childhood turned into a dark, horrifying truth. That my own sister, my loving sister, had wanted me dead since we were kids. The letter was a lightning bolt. It didn't just reveal a wish. It exposed a deeply rooted hatred, a calculating cruelty that had shaped my entire life. It explained everything: the accidents, the subtle pushes, the isolation. She hadn't just abandoned me in that nursing home. She had been planning my removal, my elimination, for decades. That cold look in her eyes, the one that had always bothered me even when I was little, suddenly made chilling sense. It was the look of a killer. And knowing that, feeling the weight of that truth, I realized this wasn't just about escaping this room. This was about exposing her. And the fight I just had with Eleanor? That was just the first spark of a much bigger fire. Finding that letter was like a bomb going off in my mind. The paper was old, folded many times, and the ink was faded, but the words were screaming. They showed me that Eleanor wasn't just selfish or a little mean. She was truly evil, always had been. The shocking part wasn't just what she wanted to do, but how long she had wanted it. It was like a chill went through my bones. All those years, all those smiles, they were just a mask over something dark and twisted. After that fight, after seeing her face twist with true fear, I knew one thing for sure. The letter was my shield, my sword. It wasn't just about my sister's hate. This went deeper. The letter mentioned Beatrice, Eleanor's childhood friend. Beatrice. I remembered her. Always quiet. Always looking up to Eleanor like she was a goddess. Beatrice, who visited me in the nursing home with Eleanor. Always sitting there, sometimes casting quick, nervous glances my way. I thought she was just uncomfortable in a place like this. But now it was clear. Beatrice wasn't just a friend. She was part of it. A silent partner in Eleanor's awful plan. That's the sick part of it, isn't it? The betrayal wasn't just from Eleanor. It was from Beatrice too. The quiet one, the seemingly harmless one, was also a deceiver. She'd acted all sweet like she cared. But thinking back, there were moments. Ting moments. Like how she'd sometimes flinch when my eyes met hers. A quick look of guilt that vanished as fast as it appeared. I used to think it was just because she didn't like hospitals. Now I knew it was the shame, the heavy weight of her being involved. And once I started looking, really looking, the whole terrible picture came into view. How many other people were in on this? How far did Eleanor's dark web stretch? I started listening more carefully. I'd pretend to be asleep, or just sitting quietly in my wheelchair, and listen to the nurses talk. Bits and pieces of conversations about Eleanor's generosity to the nursing home. Such a good sister, they'd say. She's so dedicated to Mrs. Weatherstone. Turned my stomach. I slowly pieced together what I heard. Eleanor had managed all my money. She had some legal paper that gave her control over everything I owned, saying it was for my protection. But it was all a lie. It was so she could get her hands on my money, so I had no way to escape. My pension, my small savings, even the money from selling my house. All of it went through her, disappearing into accounts I couldn't touch. The money problems I faced were huge. She'd left me with nothing, so I couldn't even pay for a taxi, let alone a lawyer. The true monster inside Eleanor became terribly clear. She wasn't just selfish or jealous. She was like a hunter. She built this fake story of herself as the selfless sister, giving up her own life for mine. All while she was slowly taking away my freedom, my money, everything that made me me. She acted like the victim, complaining about how much of a burden I was to anyone who would listen. I even overheard a nurse talking about how lucky I was to have such a caring sister. Lucky? I was trapped. The danger grew higher. My being alive was a risk to her perfectly made-up life. If I got out, if I told the truth, her whole world would crash down. Her good name, her social standing, even her job. Eleanor had always been a successful businesswoman, known for being honest and giving money to good causes. The idea of all that falling apart was what made her so desperate to keep me quiet. I also started to notice other things in the nursing home. Some nurses who seemed tired and overworked were subtly told not to spend too much time with me. My medicines were sometimes forgotten, making me feel confused and dizzy. It wasn't like they were hitting me, but it was a quiet, steady way of not caring for me, designed to keep me weak, confused, and easy to control. Eleanor had found a way to get inside the system, using her charm and fake concern to make sure the staff did what she wanted, or at least didn't ask questions. The discovery about Beatrice, and how she was part of the plan, hit me hard. The world, which I used to see as simple good and evil, now felt like a dark, muddy swamp of hidden intentions and tangled friendships. I was truly alone, fighting against a force that seemed impossible to beat. This wasn't just about escaping this place. It was about showing everyone a deep secret plan. And as I held that crumpled letter in my shaky hand, the words repeating in my mind, "She's always in the way. I wish she'd just disappear." I knew I had to fight, not just for myself, but for every other person who had been silenced by a smile and a lie. The web of secrets got bigger, and my will got stronger, knowing that if I didn't break free, I would really die. The fight with Eleanor was just the first wave, and a much bigger storm was coming. Eleanor's shocked face, the shattered glass on the floor. It all felt like a movie, but it was my life. The fear I saw in her eyes wasn't just about me. It was about the secrets I was about to reveal. The letter was a crack in her perfect world, and I was going to smash it wide open. That letter, the one I snatched from the trash before Eleanor could destroy it, wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a key, unlocking a whole hidden world of secrets and dirty deals I never knew existed. It wasn't just Eleanor who was trying to hurt me. This whole thing was much bigger, much more complicated than I could have imagined. That letter mentioned Beatrice, Eleanor's old childhood friend. And Beatrice wasn't just a friend. She was like Eleanor's silent helper, a secret partner in this sick game. I remembered Beatrice. She always seemed so sweet, so quiet, always looking up to Eleanor like she was perfect. Now I saw her for what she really was, a betrayer hiding in plain sight. She used to visit me with Eleanor in this nursing home, sitting there quiet, sometimes shooting quick, nervous glances my way. I thought she was just uncomfortable being in a nursing home. But now it was all so clear. Those whispers between them, those knowing looks. They weren't just old friends catching up. They were secret meetings, planning how to keep me locked away. The betrayal wasn't just Eleanor's. It was Beatrice's too. It was a deep, sharp cut. I thought back to those visits, to how Beatrice would sometimes flinch when I looked at her. A tiny flash of guilt in her eyes. I used to think she was just shy. Now I knew it was the weight of her bad choices, her being part of something so cruel. She was putting on an act, pretending to care while helping Eleanor hurt me. Once I started to understand this, new problems popped up everywhere. How many other people were involved? How far did Eleanor's control reach? I started to really listen. I'd pretend to be asleep, or just sit quietly in my wheelchair, and listen to what the nurses and staff were saying. I learned that Eleanor had been pulling strings, using her charm and reputation to make sure the nursing home staff followed her lead. She made generous donations, They called them donations that bought my isolation, my neglect. I found out that Eleanor had full control of all my money. She had a special legal paper called a power of attorney that gave her the right to handle everything I owned. She said it was for my protection, but it was just a lie. It was to take away all my money so I couldn't escape. My retirement money, my small savings, even the money from selling my house. It all went through her, disappearing into bank accounts I couldn't get to. The financial consequences of her actions were huge. I was stuck here with no money, no way to hire a lawyer, no way to get out. The real truth about Eleanor, my cruel antagonist, became sickeningly clear. She wasn't just selfish or a bit jealous. She was like a predator. She carefully built this fake story of herself as the perfect, caring sister, someone who was giving up her own life to look after me. But all the while, she was slowly taking away every bit of my freedom and respect. She acted like the victim, complaining about how much of a burden I was to anyone who would listen. I even heard a nurse talking about how lucky I was to have such a devoted sister. Lucky? I was trapped. This wasn't just about money. It was about stealing my whole life. The risks got even higher. My being alive, my being able to tell the truth, was a huge threat to her carefully built world of lies. If I got out, if I told people what she did, her whole life would crash down. Her good name, her place in society, her job. Eleanor was a very successful businesswoman, known for being honest and giving money to good causes. The thought of all that falling apart was what made her so desperate to keep me quiet, to keep me buried in this place. I also started to notice small but important things in the nursing home itself. Some nurses who seemed tired and busy were quietly told not to spend too much time with me. My medicines were sometimes missed, or I was given the wrong ones, making me feel confused and dizzy. It wasn't obvious abuse, but a quiet, steady way of not giving me proper care, meant to keep me weak, confused, and easy to handle. Eleanor had found a way to get inside the system, using her charm and fake worry to make sure the staff either helped her or just looked the other way. The shocking discovery about Beatrice being involved pushed me even further. The world, which I used to see as simple and clear, now felt like a dark, muddy swamp of hidden plans and twisted loyalties. I was truly alone, fighting against something that seemed impossible to beat. This wasn't just about getting out of this nursing home anymore. It was about showing everyone a very deep, hidden conspiracy. And as I held that crumpled letter in my shaky hand, the words repeating in my mind, "She's always in the way. I wish she'd just disappear." I knew I had to fight, not just for myself, but for every other person who had been silenced by a smile and a lie. The conspiracy was getting deeper, and my anger was growing hotter, knowing that if I didn't break free, I would truly die. And Eleanor, oh, she had no idea what was coming. This was just the beginning of her nightmare. The truth about Beatrice, about Eleanor's deep, hidden plan, was a heavy weight on my chest. It felt like every breath I took was a struggle. The shattered glass from our fight was cleaned up, but the sharp edges of betrayal were still cutting deep. My body was old and weak, stuck in this bed, but my mind was clearer than ever. And that made the pain even worse. The weight of all those secrets, the sheer nerve of Eleanor's cruelty, pushed me right to the edge. It wasn't a sudden fall into darkness. It was a slow, agonizing slide into pure hopelessness. Days blurred into weeks, each one a torment of feeling completely helpless. My body, which used to be strong, now felt like a cage. My mind, which was once sharp, was cloudy from all the medicine. Medicine I strongly suspected was given to keep me quiet, to keep me from thinking clearly. Eleanor's actions were suffocating me. I had constant health scares, fevers, infections, strange dizziness that made me feel like I was floating away. Every time I wondered if this was it, if Eleanor had finally gotten what she wanted. I was pushed to my very last limit. There were times late at night when the loneliness felt like a real ache, a big hole in my soul. I'd stare at the ceiling, tears silently running down my wrinkled cheeks, thinking about just giving up. What was the point? My own sister, the one person I thought I could always trust, wanted me dead. My friends were gone, pushed away by Eleanor's clever tricks. I felt like a ghost just waiting for the end. The emotional breakdowns happened often. Silent cries from a woman who had lost everything she cared about. It was the all is lost moment over and over again, in the quiet darkness of my room. But even in the deepest, darkest holes of sadness, a tiny spark stayed alive. A small, stubborn ember of defiance. The letter. That awful, wonderful letter. It was like an anchor pulling me back, giving me a reason to hold on to life. It was proof that my suffering wasn't random, wasn't something I deserved. It was the result of a cold, planned, cruel plot. And knowing that, even though it was a terrible truth, it gave me a strange kind of power. It changed me from being just a victim into someone fighting a war. I started to fight back in small ways that were almost impossible to see. When nurses tried to give me certain medicines, I'd pretend to be confused, or I'd subtly spit them out when no one was looking. I paid more attention to what people were saying, piecing together bits of information about where Eleanor was, what she was doing, her money dealings. I started to save my energy, holding it back for the right moments. I was like a little bird pecking away at a giant cage, trying to find a weak spot. The biggest shock came during a short time I was left alone in the common room. I heard two nurses talking, their voices low. They were talking about Eleanor's generous donations to the nursing home, gifts that made sure certain residents got special treatment. And for me, that special treatment meant being kept alone and neglected. It proved what I already suspected about her power here. Eleanor had used her money to control this place, to make sure I would never truly get better. The financial consequences weren't just for me. They were hurting the very place I was trapped in, making it part of her plan. This was the real breaking point, the moment I finally understood how truly evil she was. She hadn't just left me. She had actively, quietly tried to make me disappear. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, but it also filled me with a sudden rush of energy. If she was willing to go to such lengths to keep me here, to keep me quiet, then I had to be worth silencing. My life had value, a truth that had been taken away from me for years. It was a terrifying thought, but it also made me feel strong. All of Eleanor's past actions, the accidents from when we were kids, the quiet ways she controlled me, the way she cut me off from everyone, they all came together to form a monster. This wasn't just a sister fighting with another sister. It was a hateful plan that had been going on for decades. And I, the victim who finds strength, was finally ready to truly fight. This wasn't just about getting out of this nursing home anymore. It was about breaking down her whole empire of lies. My all is lost moment wasn't the end. It was the fiery start of my comeback. The realization that I was up against a truly evil force, and that I was the only one who could stop her, lit a fire inside me that even the coldest neglect couldn't put out. The stage was now set for a huge change, and Eleanor had no idea what was coming. She thought I was broken. She was about to learn I was just getting started. Just when I thought I had figured out every single awful detail of Eleanor's plan, when I felt I knew the full story of her cruelty, something happened. Something that completely changed what I thought I knew. It was like someone flipped a switch, turning the whole picture upside down. This huge piece of information came from a person I had completely overlooked. Someone I had thought was just another old sad person in this place, another victim of time and bad luck. Her name was Agnes. She was a tiny, frail woman like a little bird, with eyes that held so many quiet observations, so many unspoken stories. She had always seemed confused, easily lost in thought. But I was learning that how things looked on the outside could be very misleading. One afternoon, when she was unusually clear-headed, Agnes came up to me. Her voice was barely a whisper, so soft I almost missed it. "You're not the only one, dearie," she rasped, her eyes quickly looking around, checking if anyone was listening. "She's done it before. To her own." My blood ran cold. Her own? Who? I whispered back, barely able to breathe. Agnes then told me a secret that truly blew my mind. Eleanor had another sister. An older sister named Margaret. Everyone thought Margaret had died years ago in a terrible accident. Agnes, who was a distant cousin of our family and had lived in the same town for ages, had known Margaret very well. She talked about Margaret's lively spirit, her kindness, and how much she looked like me. And then she spoke of Margaret's sudden decline, how she became isolated, and finally, her death in a small faraway care facility that Agnes now realized sounded exactly like this nursing home. This was the game-changing information. Margaret wasn't just a dead relative. She was a warning, a pattern. Eleanor had perfected her dark skills long before she ever came for me. The accidental death of Margaret was no accident at all. The very same steps, cutting someone off, stealing their money, and then causing their quiet end had all happened before. This new information created a terrifying, unexpected connection between us. I wasn't just Eliza, the sister Eleanor wanted to get rid of. I was Margaret 2.0, the next person in a long line of victims. It was like I was looking at my own future if I didn't fight back. The plot twist didn't stop there. Agnes, it turned out, wasn't just some old lady who happened to know things. She was a wise mentor figure in disguise, a quiet witness to Eleanor's cruelty, always haunted by the fact that she couldn't help Margaret. She had been collecting little bits and pieces of information, small things that didn't add up in Eleanor's stories, quiet whispers from old family friends who had grown suspicious over the years. She even had a faded photograph of Margaret, a striking picture that showed just how much I looked like my unlucky sister. This new friend gave me a purpose beyond just saving myself. I was now fighting for Margaret too. I was fighting to show everyone that Eleanor was a serial offender, a woman who hurt her own family. The tension in the air got incredibly thick. Eleanor wasn't just a mean sister anymore. She was a cold, calculating killer, and I was her latest target. The stakes were no longer just my life, but the lives of anyone else she might try to hurt in the future. The thought of her getting away with this, with Margaret's death on her hands, made my blood boil even hotter. Agnes, as frail as she looked, became my eyes and ears inside the nursing home. She helped me understand the quiet talks among the staff, pointing out which ones were truly kind and which ones were under Eleanor's influence. She even managed to secretly get me small pieces of evidence. An old receipt someone threw away, a nurse's schedule, that helped me build my case. She was risking a lot, and that gave me even more courage. The shocking news of Margaret's fate, and Agnes's quiet but strong support, changed my sadness into a cold, firm resolve. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for justice, for the truth, for the ghost of a sister I never knew but whose life had mirrored mine in such a terrifying way. New friends had appeared in the most unexpected places, and the new enemies, those within the nursing home who were helping Eleanor, were becoming very clear. The stage was set for the big showdown, the moment when everything would be laid bare. And Eleanor, oh, she had no idea what was coming. My life and Margaret's memory depended on it. The chilling revelation of Margaret, the quiet strength of Agnes, the proof in that faded letter. It all swirled in my mind, a powerful mix of anger and determination. Eleanor thought she had me trapped, a forgotten old woman. But with every new piece of truth, I felt a surge of strength, a fiery resolve that pushed me forward. The game had changed, and now it was my turn to play. The knowledge of Margaret, of Eleanor's past crimes, made my purpose rock solid. This fight wasn't just about my freedom anymore. It was about making sure Eleanor paid for every single one of her terrible acts. The time for quietly putting up with things was over. Now it was about hitting back directly, about turning the tables completely on her. I was no longer just surviving, I was preparing for war. The very first step was to find my voice. I started speaking up, demanding answers, asking tough questions to the nurses, to the people in charge of the nursing home. My sudden assertiveness, so different from how quiet I had been before, completely shocked them. They had gotten used to me being easy to control, to me just accepting whatever they said. But this new strength was like the weak ones suddenly finding their power, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of neglect. I became a problem for them, a loud voice for my own care, and a sharp observer of how they reacted to me. I saw the fear in their eyes. The bad things for Eleanor's helpers started to show. I carefully wrote down everything suspicious. Medicines that were skipped, calls for help that were answered too slowly, strange money dealings. Agnes, my true friend, kept watching quietly, giving me important details about who visited, phone calls, and Eleanor's visits, which were getting more and more angry. We started to notice that Beatrice, the betrayer, was looking clearly nervous. Her visits became shorter, her smiles less convincing, her eyes darting around like she expected to get caught. The pressure was building on them all. My talks with the nursing home staff became sharper, more direct. I used all the information Agnes and I had gathered to point out mistakes in their records, to challenge their weak excuses. Why was my medicine chart changed? I demand. Where is the record of my last physical therapy session? I didn't directly accuse anyone, but my sharp questions and steady gaze started to plant seeds of doubt and fear in their minds. Small moments of public humiliation began. A nurse would quickly say sorry, an administrator would stammer out an explanation, all while other residents watched, curious and wondering what was going on. Eleanor, still not knowing how much I had woken up, got more and more annoyed. She saw my new energy as a sign that I was just agitated. Another symptom of my mind getting worse. She tried to ignore my complaints, to calm me down with empty promises. But I could see the cracks forming in her perfect act. Her calm, which used to be unshakable, was starting to fall apart. She was losing control, and it was a beautiful sight. I knew I needed more than just stories and things I had heard. I needed real solid proof. Agnes, with her surprising network of old friends from our hometown, managed to put me in touch with a retired private investigator, a former police officer named Arthur. He was a gruff but honest man, a wise mentor figure in his own way, who had known Margaret and had always had doubts about her death. He became my legal advisor, my planner, working quietly outside the nursing home walls. He started gathering official papers, digging into public records, tracking Eleanor's money transactions. He was my lifeline. The moments of truth-telling started with Arthur. I told him everything. The letter, Agnes's shocking news about Margaret, my suspicions about the nursing home staff. He listened carefully, his face grim. "You've got a case, Eliza," he finally said, his voice firm. "A darn good one." This was the turning point. The legal troubles for Eleanor were finally starting to take shape. The walls were closing in on her. The antagonist's downfall had officially begun. Eleanor was no longer just the person pulling the strings. She was becoming the one being hunted. She was still in charge of what people believed, but that control was slipping fast. Arthur began sending anonymous tips to different government offices that deal with rules and laws, hinting at elder abuse and money fraud. The nursing home itself started getting questions, quiet at first, then more and more. The pressure was building from all sides. I was no longer just a victim. I was a planner, a strategist, and the pieces were finally moving into place for the big showdown. The quiet suffering was over. The war had truly begun, and I was going to win. The air was thick with the weight of expectation. Eleanor's world was cracking, the pressure building, and I could feel it, even from my nursing home bed. Arthur was my shield, Agnes my quiet strength. The game wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the truth, about vengeance, about finally making Eleanor face everything she had done. And the day for that reckoning had finally arrived. The day of the big fight didn't come with a loud bang, but with the quiet hum of official cars pulling into the nursing home driveway. Arthur had planned it perfectly, a carefully timed meeting of forces. The final confrontation between me, the old woman left for dead, and Eleanor, the powerful, cruel sister, wasn't a whispered threat in a dark room. It was a public show seen by staff, other residents, and a completely confused Eleanor. The stage was set, and the spotlight was on her. She walked in, her usual fake smile in place, expecting just another normal visit to her sick sister. But as she stepped into the common room, she wasn't met by a weak, quiet Eliza. She was met by a woman standing tall, with Arthur and a serious-looking legal team on either side of me. Beside me, Agnes, her tiny body radiating a quiet strength, held my hand. I could feel the energy in the room shift, everyone holding their breath. All secrets were revealed, all lies exposed. Arthur, with chilling exactness, laid out all the evidence. Copies of bank transfers, showing money stolen from my accounts. The official papers of Eleanor's power of attorney, which she had used to control my life. And then the killer blow. That terrible letter to Beatrice, which a handwriting expert had confirmed was real. He even showed a faded picture of Margaret, comparing it to me, pointing out the horrifying pattern of Eleanor's repeated betrayals. The family drama played out for everyone to see, raw and undeniable. Eleanor's face, which had always been a perfect mask of control, began to crack. First disbelief, then a quick flash of panic, and finally a twisted look of pure rage. She tried to deny it, to spin her usual web of lies. "She's confused. Old age has finally made her lose her mind," she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. But her words sounded hollow against the mountain of proof. The staff, some of whom had quietly helped her, looked away, their faces showing a mix of fear and shame. They knew. The complete role reversal was clear for everyone to see. Eleanor, the powerful, respected businesswoman, was suddenly a desperate, trapped animal. And I, the discarded stray dog, was now the one accusing her, the one bringing the truth to light. "You tried to bury me alive, Eleanor," I said, my voice steady, unmoving. "Just like you buried Margaret." The mention of Margaret's name hit her like a physical punch. Her eyes got wide, a raw, deep fear finally taking over her anger. She had thought that secret was safe, buried with her first victim. Then came the moment of dramatic justice. The police, along with other officials, who had all the documents from Arthur, stepped forward. They told Eleanor that she was being investigated for elder abuse, stealing money, and possibly for her connection to Margaret's suspicious death. The mention of legal trouble sent a shockwave through the room. Eleanor, who had always walked through life without facing any consequences, was now facing the full power of the law. She lunged at me then, a desperate, wild lunge driven by pure hatred. "You ruined everything," she screamed, her perfectly styled hair messy, her eyes wild. But Arthur and the legal team were ready for this. Security guards, who had been quietly placed nearby, stepped in, holding her back. She fought, shouting curses, her carefully built perfect image completely destroyed. As they led her away, her angry shouts echoing through the plain hallways, I felt a deep sense of an ending, but also a deep tiredness. The battle was won, but the scars remained. Yet, as I looked at Agnes, at Arthur, at the few kind staff members who offered small, sorry smiles, I knew I wasn't alone. Eleanor's cruel reign was over. The stage was now set for the moral lesson, a lesson learned from the very real results of her actions, and etched into the new freedom of my own reclaimed respect. I had been a victim, but now I was a survivor, and my story would be a warning. The echoes of Eleanor's screams had finally faded. The heavy quiet that followed was not the quiet of neglect, but of peace. The nursing home, which had once felt like my grave, now felt like a place of new beginnings. Eleanor was gone, swallowed by the justice system she had so long avoided. The long winding road of her crimes had finally reached its end, and the consequences for everyone involved were clear. The dust settled, but the impact of Eleanor's downfall lingered, a powerful reminder of how quickly a carefully built life can crumble. Eleanor was stripped of everything she valued: her huge wealth, her shining reputation, and her freedom. The court hearings laid bare her endless stealing of my money and her cold, calculated cruelty. She was found guilty of abusing an elder person and stealing money, and the old case of Margaret's death was looked at again. Even though they couldn't fully prove murder because it happened so long ago, the strong suspicion and the public's anger stuck to her like glue. She became an outcast, alone and hated, exactly the fate she had wanted for me. Her supposed success turned to dust, a harsh lesson that real success cannot be built on lies and pain. Agnes, my rock, my true friend, found a new reason to live. Her clear words in court were key to proving Eleanor's guilt, and she became a quiet but strong fighter for the rights of old people, sharing her story with a newfound confidence. She eventually moved in with a loving niece, spending her last years in peace and with dignity, surrounded by real care. Arthur, the gruff but honest investigator, found deep satisfaction in seeing justice served. He kept doing his work, but with an even sharper eye, always looking out for those who would hurt the weak. He was a hero in his own right, fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. As for me, Eliza Mae Weatherstone, I was no longer the forgotten woman in the nursing home. I was the victim who found strength, the one who fought back against pure evil and won. My health slowly got better, helped by proper care and a fresh sense of hope. I was finally able to get my money back, though much had been lost to Eleanor's greed. But more importantly, I got my life back. I moved into a small, sunny apartment, filled with my art supplies, ready to paint again, to create beauty where Eleanor had tried to create only despair. The world outside felt fresh and new, a second chance I never thought I'd get. The moral lesson of my story is clear, carved deeply into my very survival. True evil often hides behind a friendly face, and the most dangerous threats can come from the people closest to you. Eleanor's story is a chilling reminder that what you see on the outside can be very misleading, and that uncontrolled jealousy and greed can grow into something truly monstrous. We must always be careful, not just of those who seem obviously bad, but of the quiet tricks, the hidden betrayals, the whispers of harm dressed up as kindness. I stand here, a living example of how strong the human spirit can be. Even when everything seems lost, Even when you are thrown away and forgotten, the human spirit, powered by truth and a desire for fairness, can find its way back. My story is a powerful call to action. Never think that a quiet person, an underdog, is weak. Never ignore that gut feeling, that small voice in your head that says something is wrong. And never ever give up on getting your dignity back, no matter how bad things seem. A long, steady breath, a quiet, knowing smile plays on my lips. My loving sister left me to die like a stray dog in that nursing home. But the letter she failed to burn revealed she wanted me dead since we were kids. And because of that letter, because of that cruel, terrible truth, I am here. Alive. And ready to live. And to speak. And to make sure that no one else ever suffers the fate of a stray dog. Not on my watch. My journey was long and painful. But the final victory, the sweet taste of justice, makes every scar worth it. I am Eliza Mae Weatherstone, and I am finally free. And if my story has touched you, if it has given you a moment of clarity or a spark of hope, then please stay with me. There are more stories to tell, more truths to uncover, more voices that need to be heard. Join me and let us share them, so no one else is left to fade away in silence.